everybody. We were just giving it a couple of minutes there because we're expecting about 130, 140. But I think we'll just kick off and people can join us as we go along. So good evening. Delighted to see so many attending. Can I just introduce myself? I'm Christine Keenan. I'm Qualifications Manager for a couple of the qualifications we're looking at tonight. The session was put together really in response to an initial request from Kirsty Hare at the Scottish Business Education Association. So I believe they had put out a survey to their members asking for feedback on what qualifications they were most interested in, and these three came out the top. So I've joined them together in a single session because there is a certain synergy between the three areas. So just to recap then on the purpose. So it's really to provide some information and insights in these qualification areas to allow you to consider potential new vocational options in your school. I'm saying school, but I noticed a few Kent faces from colleges, so to all centres. But the initial request was coming very strongly from the school sector. So we will be finishing up with a Q&A section. So just to remind folks, if you do have questions as we're going along, if you can maybe pop them in the chat and we'll deal with them in the Q&A. And if need be, we'll follow up with an FAQ if there's a lot of questions coming up. So next slide. So just a brief round of introductions from the team that we have tonight. So myself, I'm Qualification Manager and I cover Skills Work Retailing and the NPAs in events. Also cover MP and supply chain operations. I'll explain in a minute why I've highlighted that. Craig McDonald is Qualification Officer in my team who deals with both Skills Work Retailing and events. Gail English, Qualifications Manager who covers customer service. Now Gail's hoping to join us later. She's had to attend a hospital appointment with her husband, but she's hoping to get back in time for the Q&A session. And Kirsty Mitchell is Gail's Qualification Officer who deals with the NPAs and customer service. We also have Teresa McGowan. Teresa is one of our regional manager team covering Edinburgh and the Lothians, and one of the roles of the regional managers is to help centres through the approval process. So Teresa's going to do an input on kind of the general approval side of things in a minute. Last but not least, we have Cheryl Anderson behind the scenes, who's doing the tech for us, up to her knees in marker meetings at the moment, but also helping us out tonight. So if anybody's got any technical problems, then just drop it in the chat box and Cheryl will hopefully help us out. Next slide. The subject specialists we have on hand tonight that will be leading the main aspects of the sessions. Morag Doig is Qualifications Verifier for our retailing portfolio. Carolyn Patterson, likewise for events. And Andrew Calder is, Andrew's actually Senior External Verifier, Qualification Verifier for customer service. Next slide. Just a quick word about the follow-up to the event. So I've given our email addresses, the direct qualifications team, for any thoughts you have afterwards, any further queries to get in touch directly with us. But also to say that we'll be sending out detailed information sheets for each of the qualifications, and that will have links to key documents, resources, etc. progression charts that will show the individual qualification, how you can progress to other ones within the sector. And just to mention the supply chain operations here, it wasn't one that came up in the request from the association, but it's one that we'd recommend you have a look at. It's very relevant, and I think it will be of interest if you have a look at it. So we're not covering it in the main session in terms of an input, but we'll provide all the information and would encourage you to have a look at them. So if I can now hand over to Teresa, and she'll kick off by giving an overview of approval and approval processes. And just can I end up by thanking you for giving up your time this evening, and I hope you find the session useful. Okay,
Hi.
next slide.
Hi, thanks Christine. My name's Teresa McGowan. I'm one of 9 regional managers that look after each of the local authorities across Scotland, my remit being Edinburgh, East Lothian and Mid Lothian. We work with the schools on wider achievement and approval. Next slide, please. So the qualifications that we're going to focus on tonight come under what we call the wider achievement banner. So Skills for Work, National Progression Awards and awards is in there as well. These qualifications are designed in partnership with industry experts to ensure learners gain the skills and expertise needed in the workplace. The levels of support available for these qualifications will differ whether or not they're national developments or local developments. In terms of the qualifications that we're talking about tonight, we have the retailing and the NPE and customer service, which were both national developments, and the NPE events, which was a local development from one of the colleges. Next slide. Okay, it might just be worth useful explaining what the difference is between each of the wider achievement qualifications that we have. So the Skills for Work, they focus more on the generic employability skills and they're linked to vocational areas. And the difference with the NPAs, they're defined on a set skills of knowledge and concentrate on more specialist vocational areas, linking into national occupational standards. There is a different application form as well, because we're at points that I've bulleted below on the different support that candidates need. That's represented in the different application forms that we have. But your regional manager, through your coordinator, can talk you through any issues that you have with that. Okay, the next slide, please. So for those that don't know, the wider achievement qualifications, there's a number of key benefits from these if they're new to the school that you're looking at. There are no external assessments, they're all internally assessed. There's a wide variety of learning and teaching approaches. You've got opportunities for personalisation and choice. It's a unit by unit or integration delivery, holistic assessment, assessment of evidence that you can draw from a variety of sources. They're all SCQF credit rated and levelled, and they carry the same level of difficulty as national qualifications at the levels 5, 6 and 7. They're not time bound and they're normally 24 SCQF credit points, which is roughly the 240 hours of notional learning. Next slide, please. Okay, the approval status differs for each of the qualifications. Some time ago, the Skills for Work courses, some of them became auto-approved, and retailing became part of that. So you find within the schools that you're good to go with that one that is auto-approved. The NPA and customer service, which was new in 2019, the units within that are auto-approved, but not the group award. But we can get you through approval for that if you contact your coordinator and contact the regional manager, and we can arrange for approval for that. So it's just an email that we need confirming that you're looking for approval. And the NPA and events at levels 4 and 6, again, a number of those units are auto-approved, but I've put in the slide here, the units, there's one at level 4 that's not auto-approved that you will need to apply for approval for and demonstrate that you have the staff and the resources able to deliver that. And then with the level 6, there are 3 units, again, that are not auto-approved that you would need to demonstrate that you have the staff able to do that. Okay, next slide. Okay, there are a number of things that you can do to help support with the delivery. You don't need to do this entirely within the school. You can work with your DYW groups, your school college partnerships. I know there's a really good one where I work within Edinburgh. You've got Marketplace, where they're connecting schools, colleges and businesses together. And you can also work with partnership agreements. So you can work in partnership with local employers or other schools, and they can take on different responsibilities around assessment or internal verification. And we do have a partnership agreement that we can share with the coordinator if that's something that you wish to do. The other thing that we can help you with is we can link you up with other schools that are delivering. We find that's also very helpful as well. So if you are looking for any schools within your area, then contact us and we can put you in touch with those. UShare, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's been running now for quite a few number of years, and the resource bank's getting bigger. So at the bottom of the SQA website, you've got the UShare, and if you click on that, it brings up tiles for the different subject groups that we have. And I'm delighted to see as well that we have a tile for the events, retailing and the customer service. Those are resources that our Grown MD can use them, and it's like a TripAdvisor. So you log on and you look at any resources that help with delivery of SQA courses, and you can rate them. So anyone can upload, it's free to use, and we would encourage you, if you do find a resource that's useful and help support delivery, then you can log on to become a UShare user. Okay, that's all that I have in the partnership agreement with the approval support, but if you do need any help, just put it in the questions and we can get back to you later on. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Hi, so I'm Morag Doig. I'm the qualifications verifier for the Skills for Work Retailing National 5. And I'm going to talk you through some of the elements of the qualification, including the units, but also some of the benefits and key learning that the students will achieve taking part. Next slide, please. So the Skills for Work Retailing qualification is set at National 5. It's a group award comprising of 4 mandatory units. So there will be a resource sheet that will give you further details in each of the individual units. However, I'll just give you a quick overview. So working in retail is really focused around employability skills. So students will look at the scope of job roles within the sector, the type of skills required, and also things like interviews and different types of interviews that are taking place, particularly now post-COVID, and what the expectations are for careers within the sector. Maintaining, storing and replenishing stock will focus around about the right product in the right place and the right quantity at the right time. However, it will also branch out to look at supply chain and also the legislation around about stock management. Satisfying customer needs is a great unit for building confidence within students. So that's about customer selling and interaction skills. And there's really good practical activities within there in terms of dealing with complaints and understanding legislation. Planning and implementing a retail event is a great way of bringing together all of the units into the practical skills that are required to work in retail. So the students will be able to work together as a team to understand their strengths and to get a lot of peer support and peer feedback in terms of putting on an event and looking at things like the stock, the customer service and the various roles that they'll have to undertake to implement the event. So the focus is on employability skills and vocationally related learning. Next slide, please. Progression routes or potential progression routes from the qualification for students could be a national certificate in retailing if they feel like going to college or they think that would be a good next step for them. Some students may want to go into direct employment within the retail sector. And again, it's broadening that scope of understanding of what's available. So there could be customer service and sales roles, but there's also a lot of back office sort of stockroom warehousing work. And now with the digital age, there's lots of .com, click and collect and various digital roles within retail setting. They could go on to do an SVQ retailing at level 5, which could be done through their workplace or through a college provider. And they could look at a modern apprenticeship in retailing. So there's lots of progression routes there available to them to take the next steps. Next slide, please. So why choose to study retail? So this is a common question, I think, for a lot of students and also for a lot of parents that may be interested in why this would be a good career choice. So a third of consumer spending goes through UK retail. So it's a huge industry in terms of turnover. It employs over 3 million people in the UK alone, and that's not touching the sort of global supply chain and the global elements of retail. It offers a range of work-based qualifications. So as we looked at, there's lots of practical modern apprenticeships and SVQs they can do in the workplace, but they also have college options to progress onto as well. It's got a wide range of career opportunities. So retail now encompasses everything from e-commerce, digital, creative to management and professional. It's no longer sales jobs and customer service frontline. There's a lot that goes into it, and you'll see the different kind of companies now are global, such as Amazon, that have a very, very wide range of activities. Next slide, please. The learner experience. So this is the part that you really engage with when you go to visit the centres, and it's great to see the progression that students can actually make as an individual. So they develop greater levels of work readiness. A lot of students that take part will develop confidence in their own employability skills. They'll attain knowledge and understanding of sector requirements. So my background was a retail manager for a number of years, so I did a lot of recruitment for national retailers, and one of the things we were looking for was students to understand what's required in the sector, develop core skills and enhance their own personal development. So there's a lot of reflective work in there, and there's a lot of opportunity for peer feedback and from feedback from observations, which is really good for developing yourself as an individual. They'll gain practical experience of teamwork and customer service. It's a very interactive qualification where there's lots of scope of opportunity for them to work together and as an individual to contribute to teamwork. Identify and utilise personal strengths and working with others. This is a great element that we see in the feedback from students, is that they identify what they're good at and what they can contribute, which I think is really, really key, particularly when they're going forward to interviews within the sector. They can start to say, this is what I can bring to this organisation or to this next level in my career. Next slide, please. So hints and tips, just from going around centres and sort of speaking to different delivery centres. Units can be accredited individually. So though there is a group award, if a student is able to achieve 2 or 3 of the units individually, then they can still be accredited. I know that sometimes students can fall off the map kind of halfway through the year for various personal reasons, but they can get those units that they've achieved, and they can maybe come back at a later date and look to the other units that they still need to do. They can adopt a holistic approach to assessment. So a lot of the units, as you'll see, have a lot of crossover and they interact. So if you're doing an activity and you think that will fit maybe 2 units, then have a look at the ASPs, have a look at the performance criteria, and see if you can maybe use that one activity to go across the different ASPs. They can link with other centres to share knowledge and resources. So this is a really great thing to do. There's brilliant practice out there, and it'd be great to share that amongst the centres. And I know that Teresa mentioned that the SQA can link centres together. Seek wider involvement. Again, mentioned before that DYW. Think about your local Chamber of Commerce. They'll deal with a lot of businesses within the area that may be able to do talks for the students. They may be able to interact with the Chamber in terms of their events. Speak to retailers. A lot of retailers have CSR opportunities where they will maybe give you a work placement or do a talk for students or provide you with some resources for your course. Use the SQA ASPs and resources as your guide. There's fantastic resources there, and the assessment support packs are key to the qualification, and they will keep you on track all the way through. Next slide, please. So good practice. Utilise staff and student experience. A lot of students have part-time Saturday jobs. A lot of students' parents maybe work within the sector. They've got a good understanding of what that involves. There's also staff who have done CPD with relation to retail, or when they were studying themselves, maybe have had retail jobs. So what was their experience as a worker or a manager within the sector? Engage students in current affairs. So one of the things that was excellent to see when I was going around doing the visits in the centres was they were talking about current issues which affect retail, global supply chain issues. That could be anything from COVID to the current war in Ukraine. We had one great example of supply chain that was about the tanker that had been stranded, and that meant that there was a lot of empty shelves. Brexit. There's a lot of discussion around fast fashion. Particularly young people are very, very conscious of the green economy. So it's a great topic to talk about, ethical supply chains. Rise in selling platforms. So we all know that you can pretty much purchase anything anywhere now when you're on the move, and young people are particularly great at understanding selling platforms. So again, it's bringing in individual strengths and getting that enthusiasm for the sector. Invite different types of retailers and community organisations to talk to students. So it doesn't have to be your kind of Asda's and your Sainsbury's and your larger retailers. Have you got local retailers that the students engage with that are near to the schools or to the colleges? Are there retailers part of the chambers or the DYW connections that you could bring in? You could just talk about what they do. Retail is very vast, could incorporate different types of products. And be creative with your enterprise activity. It's great to do things that will really ignite the passions of the students. So think about how they can deliver customer service within the school context, but also within the community context. And there's been some great examples of when schools have linked in with other community organisations to be able to deliver services and retailing within the area. Next slide, please. CPD opportunities. So decision logs can inform CPD. So if you're having a chat among staff, or if you're having a meeting, some moderation activity, have a think about noting down some of your decisions on a decision log, because it's great for us to be able to see the journey that you've taken to get to where you are with the qualification delivery. And it can also help you to decide what are the next steps to strengthen the qualification when you deliver it next year, because we learn every time we deliver. Engage with local Chamber of Commerce or any kind of business gateway services. So nationally, Business Gateway through your local authorities and the Business Gateway website will be able to help you with local events and local chambers. Standardisation or moderation process can identify both individual and centre development. So again, it's really good to use that process to ask yourself, what do you want to learn about the sector to help you to deliver that to the students? Or it could be something technology related, e-commerce related, or it could just be something about the different kind of platforms people are selling on. But it could also be centre development. Is there any kind of development the school can undertake or the college can undertake to help support you to deliver going forward? Engage with current news and events. I always say that retail is always in the news every day for various reasons, but there's always a story there that would be of interest to the qualification, whether that's new jobs that are being developed within the sector or whether that's new technologies. There'll always be something that we can pick in current events. Remember, you're also a consumer. So what's your experience of making a complaint and how that was handled? What's your experience of customer service? Did you have an experience where you were out recently and you really enjoyed the service, and what did that look like? Sometimes actually just asking the students that and engaging with your experience can really ignite their passion for what they're doing as well and can really influence their work. Next slide, please. Some resources and links. Retail Strategy for Scotland has been published by the Scottish Government. So there's a link there that you can go on and have a look at where the government sees the strategy for the sector going. Retail Week and Retail Gazette. So if you want some updated sector news about what national retailers are doing and what new technologies are available, you can have a look at some of these. These are all free resources. Visit the retailers' own websites and encourage the students to do the same, because there's lots of resources on there. They'll tell you a lot about who they are, what types of jobs they deliver. They'll give you job role information, sometimes videos about their supply chain. And also have a look at their social media channels. There's lots and lots of really good quality resources on YouTube and on some of the social media channels for the national retailers. And that's a really good free resource if you want to put a 3-minute clip or a 4-minute clip up about what it's like to work for Apple Retail, for example. And also, if you're looking for up-to-date statistical information, the ONS have a page on business industry, and they look at the retail industry and how many people are employed in it and what the kind of turnover is. So again, it lets you set the scene or give a little bit of background to the sector. So hopefully that kind of information will be really useful and helpful to you. And there is an opportunity at the end of the session today to ask questions, so I'll be happy to spend some time talking through any of the points. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm trying to turn my camera on, but it's not wanting to turn on. Right, okay. Good afternoon. My name's Caroline Patterson. I'm the external verifier for events management. Next slide, please. In the events suite of qualifications, there's actually quite a sort of hierarchy. The MPA at level 4 is followed by the NC Events Coordination at level 5, which is the qualification that tends to be done in colleges. The MPA at level 6, which will help lead into the HNC and the HND in events management, and actually going on to degree in events management, which is offered obviously in the universities. So each level is really suited to a certain type of pupil or student, allowing them to progress in the events industry. Next slide, please. So why would you choose a National Progression Award? Well, most of the National Progression Awards, and certainly the one at level 4 and the one at level 6, are only 4 credits in value. So they can be easily delivered in a school as a column option. All the units are standalone, so pupils will achieve qualifications if, again, they don't actually complete the whole award, perhaps because they leave early, or they're absent through sickness or ill health or something like that. They both have good progression from level 4 into other qualifications, and there's good progression opportunities, as I say, right up to the degree standard. It's also a very good fit with the school curriculum, because basically events management is all about organisation, and if you've studied a lot of organisation already within the business education department. Next slide, please. So if we're looking at the level 4, the NP in events, there's no real formal entry qualifications required for this qualification. It's just a very practical introduction to the events industry. It's kind of makes, I suppose, administration a bit more sexy to the students, if you like. The IT Solutions for Administrators is probably a unit they may have already covered within their courses in business education. But if you marry it with the Assist with an Event or the Hospitality unit, Intro to Events, they can actually take part in organising something. It's an Assist with an Event, so they don't actually have to put the event on themselves. They can helping out perhaps within the school prize giving, or they could be helping out with another department who are putting on an event. It is what it says, it's Assist with an Event. And then the skills for customer care, as with what was Maura was saying in the retailing, it gives them the idea of dealing with the customers on a practical basis. And again, working in events, you have to have a smile on your face all the time, even when things are not going well. Digital culture, social software is obviously starting an introduction to look at how you can promote your event using Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, however, TikTok, YouTube, all the different opportunities that are there for them to have a chance to look at ways that they can get information out to customers and clients. Next slide, please. The NP in events at level 6 is probably the one that most of you will be interested in, because it's probably the one that's most suitable to S5, S6 pupils. And it does require that they do have some previous qualifications at SCQF level 5. There are theoretical aspects to the units within this NPA, and there is problem solving. So it does require them to have some previous underpinning knowledge. The units, the 3 event-based units, are the event organisation unit at level 6, which is where they do have to plan, organise, run and evaluate an event. The corporate events unit is one that looks at the wider events industry and truly looks at corporate events, the different types of corporate events that you can have and the reason for having events. Then there's events costing, which again, for any of the schools or colleges that offer accounting, is a sort of minor accounting unit. It's not at any great depth or detail, because again, it is at level 5, but it covers petty cash, it covers simple job costing and break-even analysis. The kind of things you need to know: how many tickets do I have to sell to my event to break even? What kind of cost should I charge for my event? The optional unit is a marketing unit, and it can be just a generic marketing unit like the marketing mix or basic principles, or it could be a branding unit, or it could be marketing and travel and tourism if you wanted to have a sort of travel and tourism slant to the qualification. So it depends on your resources and your background knowledge and skills as to, which option I'm sure you would want to choose. Next slide, please. So the benefits for your pupils, basically it's enhancing the skills that many of them will already have if they've undertaken business or admin qualifications, and therefore it does make it a nice transition for another award for them. They're not going to be too much out of their comfort zone. One of the things that is really good about it is you could team up with another department in the school, the creative arts department, who probably put on exhibitions at the end of the year with some of their work. This could be something that the event students could help plan and organise. The sports department, if they're having a sporting event, you know, a basketball match or whatever with another school, or just, you know, some type of games, that could certainly be something that they could join up to offer together. Or in the music department, if they're putting on a gig or a concert, or, you know, something along those lines, again, the event students can be brought in where they could integrate with the other department and deliver an event with them. It develops employability and soft skills, because an awful lot of teaching and working in events is team working. And that really is one of the things that, you know, we really put a lot of emphasis on within the events units. So they do have to work together, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. But again, that's a challenge in itself for them to get on with others within their class group. It's a very good unit for reflection and evaluation of their own strengths and weaknesses. And again, going forward, what they can bring to something, what they can actually say that they have achieved, and also to look at, well, where they didn't actually do so well. So it is a very, very strong unit, event organisation unit, for developing those type of skills. Next slide, please. Okay, if you're going for approval for NP and events, the kind of things that you send in your approval request form, but it will come to an external verifier like myself. And then the kind of things we want to know is like, well, you know, how are you going to run this course? What kind of things are you doing? So it's how you're going to timetable it, how many hours a week. So if you could submit a sample timetable of how you propose to run the course. Also any materials that you might use to inform the pupils about the course. So if you've done a special handout showing how you're going to sell it to them. So you're looking at what your specialisms and background is yourself, and so how you would like to run this course for them. It's very important also to maybe put in some examples of the formative materials you hope to use for each unit, to give the external verifier an understanding of how you're going to prepare and run this particular award. The one thing I'd have to say I've come up across a couple of times with centres is that they have thought that the event organisation is organising an event and it can be integrated and crossed over with corporate events. And I'd have to say, be very, very careful, because my advice would be not really, not unless you're going to put on a corporate event in your school. And that means, you know, choosing an external venue, having guest speakers, getting sponsorship, making sure you're following all the legislative requirements. It's a much bigger thing than corporate events. So it's not a bigger unit, it's just there's more theory around what a corporate event is, and they certainly can't be integrated. So that'd be my only sort of warning there. Next slide, please. Delivering the course and how you go about assessing it. Delivering it, you don't have to start with any particular unit. You can deliver it in the order that's easier for you and your staff. I would probably start to think about event organisation early on, because things can change, and obviously COVID has affected the events industry terribly over the last couple of years, and it's only just starting to get back on its feet. So you know, thinking about the kind of event you want to run is important. It's a kind of because it's a team approach, I would suggest a portfolio or an event manual is what is used in the event organisation unit, with the teams of individuals submitting the pieces of work they have done and contributed towards the planning of this event. You can split the pupils up into teams. I'll come along in that another slide to explain that in a bit more detail. All the assessment for all the units is open book, except for outcomes 1 and 2 in corporate events, which is a multiple choice. But this is also available on Solar, the SQA Solar. And in fact, the students just then get logged into the Solar test, they take it, and it gets all marked for you. So it's a nice, quick and easy way of getting through 2 outcomes in terms of assessment. So just be aware of that opportunity. Next slide, please. Okay, so why am I, making a big thing about the event being delivered at level 6? Well, part of the reason is that I showed you the slide at the beginning about the different levels, level 4, 5 and 6. And so in order to really make the event at the right level, equivalent to higher, the kind of work that's involved, understanding what would be an event at level 4. And it's really just a very basic, some things like a bake sale or a tombola or a raffle or a craft table at Christmas or Easter, or being a volunteer at a bigger event. That's really what is expected at level 4. At level 5, you could perhaps increase the size of the number of tables you're offering, and perhaps a more focused event with maybe a guest speaker coming to a lunch or a coffee morning or something like that. But really for level 6, we're looking for something a little bit more meatier. So next slide, please. All the pupils have to be fully involved in the delivery of the event and have clearly defined roles. And I've had people say to me, well, what do you get them to do? So one of the things to do is think about your functional departments within business: admin, marketing, legal, finance, for example. So you could have 2 or 3 of them working as administrators, and they could be responsible for the portfolio and collating the evidence. The marketing, they could be the people who are doing the social media, the Facebook page, the Instagram, putting up posters. That's their role. Legal, the risk assessment, the floor plans, the running orders. Finance, simple budget. You don't have to have a big budget or to have a lot of money involved in the level 6 unit, but you do have to have some financial aspect to it. So you would expect a simple income and expenditure statement. The ASP that's available for level 6 on the SQA Secure site was developed by a college, and it has a very strong hospitality theme, and it doesn't actually cover all the knowledge and skills very well. So I would say use it with care. My advice would be look at the ASP at level 5, although I know you won't be using it, and see the kind of things that are involved in that ASP, and then just increase the level a little bit. What kind of things would you do for an event at level 6? Well, you could have a course specific conference. So for example, if you were working with the art department, they may have some artists want to come in for a talk. You could organize that for them. If you're doing travel and tourism, one of the things that work quite well with classes I've had is a treasure hunt. Split the class into 2 groups. One group makes up a treasure hunt for the other within the local city centre or around a tourist attraction, and the other one takes part in it. A film or a book review group, or both, something like that. An afternoon tea for a specific charity, a quiz afternoon. All these things will involve them thinking about working in a team, having a name and a theme, selling tickets, maybe getting donations. So that's how you would increase the level of the activity and the complexity of the event you're offering. Next slide, please. What minimum evidence would I expect to see available at level 6? Well, the point that seems to get missed quite a lot in this particular specification is that the pupils are supposed to plan an event. So it's looking at a timeline, and actually from start, when you're thinking about actually holding the event to when you have it, what happens in between. And there will be things that will happen. People might drop out, the venue might let you down, or the school's got something double booked on that day, or all sorts of things. So it's about showing how you alter that plan, making sure that everybody does have a role to play. They should be meeting as a team every week, and minutes of those meetings kept. And I say there's where an admin person would come in. The risk assessment, the venue floor plan, simple income and expenditure statement, copies of any booking forms or emails that have been sent to janitors or, deputy heads, whatever, a running order for the day. Very important, take photographs when the event actually takes place, the posters and the marketing and the promotion of the event, and if you can, any customer feedback that can be collated either electronically, digitally, or even just on a good old feedback sheet. Next slide, please. So what would be the recommendations for CPD? Well, going to events is always a very good recommendation for CPD. It's a great way of keeping up to date with, what is out there, taking particular notice of how things are organised and run, going to venues and asking for venue visits. You can be shown around some really nice places. Students of mine have been to the Botanic Gardens. They're all going home to tell their mums and dads that they want to get married there, or the zoo will let you have a show around. Many of the big venues are actually quite happy to show you around, so you can take your students out on visits or even get guest speakers in from these places as well. The event space website will send you out a weekly newsletter on a Friday of what's on and around and what's going on within the events industry. If you go on to the Event Scotland, Visit Scotland website, the event management guide there is excellent for just short, sharp, basic hints and tips and information. They also have recorded webinars and online training. The UShare for SQA resources has already been mentioned. Solar. And anytime you really want to find out anything, you can search on YouTube for videos about organising events, and usually have, it's a theme for parties. There's lots of information there, great ideas. Variety of textbooks are also available. Next slide, please. Right, that's me finished. Thank you for listening. I'll take questions at the end.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Andrew Calder. I'm the Senior Qualification Verifier for Customer Service. I'm not going to go in too much about the different levels of the level 4 and 5 and 6, because you've heard that from the other presenters, but very similar to that. But just to give you more of a kind of background to the National Progression Award for Customer Service. Next slide, please. Now, the national is, as I say, SQA level 4, 5 and 6. Main 3 units are the communication skills, social media, and customer service product and service requirement. As you appreciate, the social media one is really been very popular with a lot of centres that have been doing this, mainly because it's mainly what we all do these days now. Social media with working with complaints and queries, especially in the customer service environment. Now, that's where the customer service environment is, it's normally about 80% employment are based on the customer service, and the technology has really moved on since, and I just remember my thing, since the COVID and customer service. So one thing you may want to consider when we talked about the social media one is just making sure that the GDPR agreement, and make sure that topic the do's and don'ts, because one of the main things you will need when you're doing this customer service award is having access to the internet. So it's again just being careful what their learners are doing. Now, one thing I will say too, it is based for people intended to have a school pupil in the school and they're just leaving school, or you could also have it college students or even mature learners in a later stage that want to come into customer service. So that was one of the main things that we decided when we made this up as a working group. We had people from the industry and people from colleges, because we wanted it could be used in school, but it could also be used outside the school as well. Naturally, as I said, the 3 levels, the communication skills, the social media, and the sorry, somebody. Customer service product and service requirements. So again, it's really engaging employability, the main, how you communicate your skills on customer service, and how you use social media. So go to the next one, please. Next slide. So just really just going over the 4 levels for the SCQS level 4, and that's where you're doing a practical customer service and knowledge, communication skills, and social media. So there really are, there's 3 outcomes that you'll do, And again, it's really how you want to go about doing these courses. Now, for these levels, you know, it depends. It could be done in evening class, it could be done full time in the school, or it could be done distant, you know, over a certain period of time. So there's room for manoeuvre. And one thing I will say to you is for each level, they really are great assessment support packs that will give you all that information and how you go about doing the different levels. So that's the SCAQS level 4. If we move on to the next slide, please. Right, there we go. The SK level 5, that's where you're just moving up, but more, it's more open books in control condition. You're just really looking at different aspects. And to be honest with you, what we would encourage with them is, especially with the communication and the product, it's a kind of role play and questioning for the customer service product one. For the social media, that's where you could do things looking at the website, looking at different scenarios. You could, I'm just giving an example, Tesco, you know, as you go into your online shopping and you found it's not been done right, we're all quickly to go onto these charts and then putting in what our complaint is and seeing the process and how it comes back from the like of Tesco back to you as a customer and how you deal with our social medias. And that's where, as I said, over the last couple of years with COVID, the social medias has really, we're all going using electronically because naturally we can't go and see it face to face with the customer, with the product. If we now go on to next slide, please. That's where when you're going up to the level 6, you need more stuff. It's still the 3 outcomes over these 3 levels on the level 6, but that's where we want to enhance and make sure that that is correctly done. But one thing I will say to you is the learning and teaching approach, you know, you could be role play, simulation, you could even have work placement, you know, at the school or the centre found a work placement for the person to go and see it, or also this EE assessment, learning, you know, so there are different ways of how you could go about doing this training. One thing we've got to remember, we're trying to enhance additional skills here, employability skills, but also looking at, you know, transferable skills, including the core skills that my 2 colleagues mentioned in their presentation. So that is the main aim of it, to make sure that they can take that away with them. And as I say, the 3 units, they can be claimed separately. They're not, you can't use a group award, but if they fall, if they drop out and they don't finish it, then that's where the unit can be claimed. One thing I will say to it, that's where the customer service, you could move into the sales, that's where hotel is part of the hospitality, you could go into the call centre. There's also into the modern apprenticeship and customer service as well. So they are, for the National Progression Award, it can be used for in the customer service industry. One thing I will say to you is that there's various ways you can do it. You can do it through observation, through work placement, or as I say, you do role play in the classroom at the school. And from when the working group, when we were designing this, we found that, you know, even if it was like 5 or 6 weeks, you know, the last term before they finish up for summer holiday, they could actually achieve this unit, the all 3 unit, doing them at a time, doing it at a pace that suits them, along with you, the teacher, helping them to go through it. The other thing we've got to remember, just going back when I was talking about the GDPR, especially with the social media, we have to be careful with, you know, with mobile phones and tablets and computers, and maybe with the school policy, the do's and the don'ts, you know, what you're going to allow them to be able to handle and how they handle difficult customers. Because again, it's the way how they use the platform. And if they can't do it live, then maybe use screenshots from social media. You know, when you go and look at the complaint department on social media, on Tesco or B&Q, I'm just thinking of one of them, then you'll see the difference in how they go about dealing with it. I will say to you, that's why is there's going to be internal verification. That's why myself and my colleagues, the 2 colleagues that spoke to you earlier, we will give that support and guidance. And a lot of centres and colleges that have got level 2 and level 3 and customer service national SVQ qualification, they've been automatically been allowed to get the approval to allow them to deliver this course. It has been quite keen with a lot of hotels and a lot of hospitals, and also motor trade industry, you know, the receptionist or the service desk where they're dealing with the customer. Because a lot of the time they might deal with a customer when they hand in their car, a motor depot, but then they'll then do it by email when they're going back to tell them when their vehicle's ready or there's something wrong, and then there's a conflict of a customer service. And as I said earlier on, the main thing is the assessment support pack, really good assessment support pack, really up to date. This was, as I say, was only launched in October 2019, but that's where the COVID's kind of made it a little bit, the uptake on it. So we're hoping, and I'm hoping tonight, just giving you a little in-depth, and please, you know, if you want any question, please ask the question at the question and answer session, or please put them in the chat, and we will get back to you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.